Conan does a pretty effective job. The Beastmaster does not.
Great crossover. Welcome to Kyle and Dave versus the Machine. We've got a special double header. Knock out two birds with one stone. Or one bird, tiger, two ferrets.
Knocking out two birds with one stone is how British people talk about dating. All women birds.
Clearly, Kyle is no Beastmaster. This week, we're comparing two actual comparable movies, which is why this feels like a good idea. Conan the Barbarian, and then Beastmaster.
Dave, you must show a bit of respect. It's the Beastmaster. Not just a Beastmaster, the one and only Beastmaster.
Kyle, how did it go for you?
Well, if you listen to our two podcasts, you have Conan, has this very long, involved history in publishing and then in comics and then finally getting onto the big screen. It does a pretty effective job of bringing that character into a visual medium. Is it a complete home run? I don't think so. There's some things that don't really make a whole lot of sense, but as an action adventure, swords and sorcery film, I think it does a pretty decent job. The Beastmaster does not. It also has a literary origin, I don't think as robust or as long as what the Conan franchise had, but you can definitely tell that there is this fighting between tones. It sounds like it was a book written for kids, or at least young adults, teens, and that's fighting with a more adult tone that the director and writer is bringing to it that never really gels 100%, and you can make fun of Arnold and his acting ability, but he knew his strengths.
He knew his strengths.
Whereas in this film, none of the actors can act. It is very bad. The frustrating thing, and I think Dave and I agreed with this somewhat, is that the concept and like the core idea of the Beastmaster, as dumb as it is still kind of cool, engaging in a kid, young adult type of framework that they just kind of squandered. What were your thoughts on Conan and the Beastmaster?
That, first of all, would be a great crossover. Conan, I remember it fondly as one of the big epics, and I used to be a huge Arnold fanboy. I do remember this more fondly than when I actually watched it again, but the scope and scale and intent of Conan is huge. It's meant to be an epic. Arnold does know who he is, and he's very good at distorting his face.
We keep going back and forth on like the tone of the Beastmaster just feeling so off for most of it. Is this trying to be earnest about this? Is it trying to be jokey about this? Like, what is it trying to do? Because it's not really nailing either of those tones. Whereas Conan definitely has that scale and scope, gravitas to it as he's going on this epic journey. It does have a couple of like comedic scenes, like a punching of the camel, which shows Schwarzenegger's kind of ability to be comedic when he wants to be.
We have an argument about whether this is an action film. I think it's more of a horror action film because it is surprisingly more graphic and gory than I remember. It's like hack and slash in some scenes.
A lot of blood, a lot of boobs.
You gotta have some boobs. Whereas the Beastmaster is exactly the stereotype of a shitty made-for-TV B-80s movie. You know, at least the character Valeria is a beautiful, badass. She's actually the best actress of the group. She really pushes this cool idea of a woman who can cut your head off. The actress was a dancer and very tall, so she did a lot of her own stunts, and you can tell. In the Beastmaster, I don't even know why I know why they put this woman in it. We need this person. How do we take more clothes off?
I always feel so bad because it's not like they were given much to work with.
No, it's not her fault.
Here's a complete pile of shit. A whole lot she could probably have done.
It has nothing to do with her. It has everything to do with the producers. Who's the Beastmaster? Who cares? I mean, the dude's ripped, so he's a Beastmaster, but he can't do what Arnold does. It comes off cartoonish, but not in a good way.
Put these two movies side by side. Tell me who's pulling off the character better.
Conan, he actually looks like he knows what he's doing with it, which is great. Whereas the Beastmaster's sword is clearly made of tinfoil. The costuming and the choreography in the Beastmaster is a joke. There's just something cheap about it. James Earl Jones turns into a snake in probably his most important role as Thulsa Doom.
Yes, Thulsa Doom is a great name.
It feels like the Beastmaster is a knockoff, but apparently it's not. They were in development at the same time, so Hollywood knew the world needed a Barbarian or a Beastmaster. People get paid for this shit, and we don't. What do you think we're doing next video?
Dragon Lord. It's going to be our first Jackie Chan movie.
A third Conan ripoff. It should have been. Be. All right, let's do it. Let's swing a sword. Do you got like a quip?
Kick someone in the face?
You fools who laugh at death. Do you know what horrors lie beyond that wall? No.